Yeah, baby, my licorice is alive. Duke Ellington, sophisticated lady, one of the all-time standards. The Duke of Ellington. He definitely gets his face on the Mount Rushmore of jazz, or whatever mountain you want to put his delicious mug on. He was, to be sure, a master of the melancholy. His was a music that, at least I believe, defined the American 20th century. Anyway, Sophisticated Lady was first introduced on the Duke's bandstand in 1933. My favorite renditions, of course, Duke, the Ellington Band, which featured one of my heroes on the clarinet, that being Barney Bajard, was later done on many occasions, but Thelonious Monk did it, and he really sort of ushered it into the modern. And for vocalists, my favorite are, first and foremost, Billy Eckstine. You talk about a voice and a presence. The sands of time have blown over Billy, but he was a great in his own right, with his own orchestra that featured the likes of emerging jazz giants like Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker. And more recently, Boz Scaggs included Sophisticated Lady in his breakthrough album, But Beautiful, sort of his take on some of the great jazz standards. And I will say this, that the Boz massages all the sadness and regret and soul from the lady Sophisticate. Check it out. It's worth it. Okay, we're here. Welcome once again, episode 5, season 2 of Rebel Without Applause. Coming to you live right here from my movie studio apartment in the Wood of the Holly, where I do my best to break it down jazz-wise and joke-wise, and now Hamlet-wise, because we are now standing on the brink of the concluding and climactic Act 5 of this, the podcast premiere, 418 years in the making, of Hamlet, Prince of Denmark, which, for the purposes of this podcast, I've entitled this installment, Infinite Jest, after a certain clown named Yorick and another clown, namely myself, two certifiable merchants of mirth, myself of this age and Yorick of another, which we will do our darndest to bring to life here with just the aid of this microphone. So, picking up where we left off, story-wise, Hamlet was dispatched to England, and Laertes has just returned to Denmark to seek revenge for his slain father, and in doing, he enters into a plot with King Claudius to kill Hamlet. After which, after they've entered their little agreement, Gertrude, the queen, arrives to share the devastating news of Ophelia's watery demise. And before I dive back into the text of this play, I wanted to take a moment just to reflect on Ophelia, a lady of some style, and yes, as the song goes, sophistication. She of that most noble mind and that most delicate of dispositions, and in the preceding act, Ophelia descends into a world of her own making, an imaginary universe of flight and fancy, of sexuality and sin, yet somehow her descent seems to be more about just the madness to which her behavior is described. It's much more than that, in my view. The beautified Ophelia seems to be victimized by something far more sinister and treacherous. Because for Ophelia, despite her status and refinement of mind, she is bound by law and custom to obedience and fealty to both her father and brother. And it is this obedience that fuels her demise. I really get the feeling that the jealousy of Laertes and Polonius, their obsessiveness about Ophelia, is born of something greater than just a concern for the young lady's honor. The sense I get is that Ophelia is an unwilling, coerced sexual plaything to her paternal overlords, that rape and incest have destroyed her soul, and to my mind provide the psychic logic for her own destruction. But enough of my critical conjecture, which is most definitely open to debate and an interpretation. It's time to leap back into the abyss of crime and corruption and cover-up that consumes Denmark. Inside the stony ramparts of Elsinore, paranoia has its grip on the king and his court. But for the moment, we travel beyond the castle walls to a small church in the shadow of said castle. In the rear of that church is a snow-flecked earthen field littered with markers and monuments, hillocks and crosses, a yard of graves. Near the perimeter of the yard, a swarthy gravedigger shovels out a plot that is flanked by a mound of freshly excavated femurs, vertebrae, and skulls, while with string in hand, the gravedigger's helper measures dimensions. Says the gravedigger, "Is she to be buried in Christian burial when she willingly seeks her own salvation?" His helper says, "I tell thee she is. Therefore make her grave straight. The crowner hath sat on her and finds it Christian burial." Well, how can that be, unless she drowned herself in her own defense? "Why," says the helper, "'tis found so." Must be se offendendo. It cannot be else. For here lies the point. If I drown myself wittingly, it argues an act. And an act hath three branches. It is to act, to do, to perform. Argal, she drowned herself wittingly. Nay, but hear you, good man Delver. Now, give me leave. Here lies the water. Good. Here stands the man. Good. If the man go to this water and drown himself, it is willy-nilly he goes. Mark you that. But if the water come to him and drown him, he drowns not himself. Argal, he that is not guilty of his own death shortens not his own life. "But is this the law?" asked the helper. "Aye, marry, is it? Crowner's quest law." We have the truth on it. If this had not been a gentlewoman, she should have been buried out a Christian burial. Why, there thou sayest. And the more pity that great folk should have countenance in this world to drown themselves or hang themselves more than they're even Christian. Come, my spade. There is no ancient gentleman but gardeners, ditchers, and grave makers. They hold up Adam's profession. Was he a gentleman? Oh, he was the first that ever bore arms. Why, he had none, says the helper. What, art a heathen? How dost thou understand the Scripture? The Scripture says Adam digged. Could he dig without arms? I'll put another question to thee. If thou answerest me not to the purpose, confess thyself. Go to, says the helper. What is he that builds stronger than either the mason, the shipwright, or the carpenter? The gallows maker, for that frame outlives 1,000 tenants. Ha! I like thy wit well in good faith. The gallows does well, but how does it well? It does well to those that do ill. Now thou dost ill to say the gallows is built stronger than the church. Argal, the gallows may do well to thee. To it, come again. Who builds stronger than a mason, a shipwright, or a carpenter? Aye, tell me that and unyoke. Marry, now I can tell. To it. Mass, I cannot tell. From out of the shadow of the church enters Hamlet and Horatio at a distance. The gravedigger, cudgel thy brains no more about it, for your dull ass will not mend his pace with beating. And when you are asked this question next, say, a grave maker. The houses he makes last till doomsday. Go, get thee in and fetch me a stoop of liquor. The helper exits, and the grave digger resumes his digging chores. In youth, when I did love, me thought it was very sweet to contract, the time for a my behove. Me thought there was a nothing a meet. Says Hamlet. Has this fellow no feeling of his business? He sings in grave making. Says Horatio, custom hath made it in him a property of easiness. 'Tis even so, the hand of little employment hath the daintier sense. But age with his stealing steps hath clawed me in his clutch, and hath shipped me into the land as if I had never been such. And he shovels out his skull, does the gravedigger. Hamlet observes, that skull had a tongue in it and could sing once. How the knave jowls it to the ground as if 'twere Cain's jawbone that did the first murder. This might be the pate of a politician which this ass now o'erreaches, one that would circumvent God, might it not? It might, my lord. Or of a courtier which could say, Good morrow, sweet lord. How dost thou, sweet lord? This might be, my lord, such a one that praised my lord such a one's house when he went to beg it, might it not? Aye, my lord, why even so. And now my lady worms chapless and knocked about the mazzard with a sexton spade. Here's fine revolution, and we had the trick to see it. Did these bones cost no more the breeding but to play at loggats with them? Mine ache to think on it. Sings the gravedigger, a pickaxe and a spade, 4 and a shrouding sheet. Oh, a pit of clay for to be made, for such a guest is meet. Shoveling out more skulls, Hamlet observes, There's another. Why, may not that be the skull of a lawyer? Where be his quiddities now, his quilities, his cases, his tenures, and his tricks? Why does he suffer this mad knave to now knock him about the sconce with a dirty shovel, and will not tell him of his action of battery? This fellow might be in time a great buyer of land with his statutes, his recognizances, his fines, his double vouchers, his recoveries. Is this the fine of his fines and the recovery of his recoveries, to have his fine pate full of fine dirt? Will his vouchers vouch him no more of his purchases, and double ones too, than the length and breadth of a pair of indentures? The very conveyances of his lands will scarcely lie in this box, and must the inheritor himself have no more? Ha! Not a jot more, my lord, answers Horatio. Is not parchment made of sheepskins? Aye, my lord, and of calfskins, too. They are sheep and calves which seek out assurance in that. I will speak to this fellow. Hamlet approaches. Whose grave's this, sirrah? Mine, sir, says the grave digger. Oh, a pit of clay for to be made, for such a guest is meet. I think it be thine indeed, answers Hamlet, for thou liest in it. You lie out on it, sir, and therefore 'tis not yours. For my part, I do not lie in it, yet it is mine. Thou dost lie in it to be in it, and say it is thine. 'Tis for the dead, not for the quick, therefore thou liest. 'Tis a quick lie, sir, 'twill away again from me to you. What man dost thou dig for, asks Hamlet. For no man, sir. What woman, then? For none neither. Well, who is to be buried in it? One that was a woman, sir, but rest her soul, she's dead. How absolute the knave is. We must speak by the card, or equivocation will undo us. By the Lord, Horatio, this 3 years I have took note of it. The age is grown so picked that the toe of the peasant comes so near the heel of the courtier, he galls his gibe. Sir, how long hast thou been a grave maker? Well, of all the days of the year I came to it, that day that our last King Hamlet overcame Fortinbras. How long is that since? Cannot you tell that? Every fool can tell that. It was that very day that young Hamlet was born, he that is mad and sent into England. Ay, marry, why was he sent into England? Why, because he was mad. He shall recover his wits there, or if he do not, 'tis no great matter there. Why? 'Twill not be seen in him there. There the men are as mad as he. How came he mad? Very strangely, they say. How strangely? Faith, even with losing his wits. Upon what ground? Why, here in Denmark. I have been in sexton here, man and boy, 30 years. How long will a man lie the earth ere he rot? Faith, if he be not rotten before he die, as we have many pocky corpses nowadays that will scarce hold the laying in, he will last you some 8 or 9 year. A tanner will last you 9 year. Why he more than another? Why, sir, his hide is so tanned with his trade that he will keep out water a great while, and your water is a sore decayer of your horse on dead body. Here's a skull now, hath lain i' the earth 23 years. Whose was it? A horse on mad fellows it was. Whose do you think it was? Nay, I know not, answers Hamlet. Ha! A pestilence on him for a mad rogue. He poured a flagon of Rhenish on my head once. This same skull, sir, was Sir Yorick's skull, the king's jester. This. Even that. Hamlet takes the skull. Let me see. Alas, poor Yorick! I knew him, Horatio, a fellow of infinite jest, of most excellent fancy. He hath borne me on his back 1,000 times, and now how abhorrent in my imagination it is! My gorge rises at it. Here hung those lips that I have kissed I know not how oft. Where be your gibes now, your gambols, your songs, your flashes of merriment that was wont to set the table on a roar? Not one now to mock your own grinning, quite chapfallen. Now get you to my lady's chamber and tell her, let her paint an inch thick to this favor she must come. Make her laugh at that. Prithee, Horatio, tell me one thing. Oh, what's that, my lord? Dost thou think Alexander looked to this fashion of the earth? Even so, and smelt so. Pah! Even so, my lord. To what base uses we may return, Horatio. Why may not imagination trace the noble dust of Alexander till he find it stopping a bunghole? 'Twere to consider too curiously to consider so, says Horatio. No, faith, not a jot, but to follow him thither with modesty enough and likelihood to lead it as thus. Alexander died. Alexander was buried. Alexander returneth to dust. The dust is earth. Of earth we make loam, and why of that loam whereto he was converted might they not stop a beer barrel? Imperious Caesar, dead and turned to clay, might stop a hole to keep the wind away. Oh, that the earth, which kept the world in awe, should patch a wall to expel the winter's flaw. In the distance enters the king, Queen Laertes, and lords attendant following the corpse of Ophelia, and by that corpse walks a doctor of divinity, severe in his demeanor, but soft a while. Here comes the king, says Hamlet. There's the queen, the courtiers. Who is this they follow? And with such maimed rites, this doth betoken the corpse they follow did with desperate hand fordo its own life. 'Twas of some estate. Couch we a while and mark. They step aside behind a monument. Laertes. What ceremony else? That is Laertes, a very noble youth, mark. What ceremony else, demands Laertes. The doctor. Her obsequies have been as far and large as we have warranty. Her death was doubtful, and but that great commandor sways the order, she should in ground unsanctified been lodged till the last trumpet. For charitable prayers, shards, flints, and pebbles should be thrown on her, yet here she is allowed her virgin krantz, her maiden struments, and the bringing home of bell and burial. Must there no more be done, demands Laertes. No more be done, says the doctor. We should profane the service of the dead to sing a requiem and such rest to her as to peace-parted souls. Lay her in the earth, and from her fair and unpolluted flesh may violets spring. I tell thee, churlish priest, a ministering angel shall my sister be when thou liest howling. What, the fair Ophelia, says Hamlet? The queen sweets to the sweet farewell as she scatters flowers o'er her grave. I hope thou shouldst have been my Hamlet's wife. I thought thy bride bed to have decked, sweet maid, and not have strewed thy grave. Oh, treble woe, fall 10 times treble on that cursed head, whose wicked deed thy most ingenious sense deprived thee of. Hold off the earth a while, shouts Laertes, till I have caught her once more in mine ears. Laertes leaps in the grave. Now pile your dust upon the quick and dead, till of this flat a mountain you have made to o'ertop old Pelion, or the skyish head of blue Olympus. Hamlet advances. What is he whose grief bears such an emphasis, whose phrase of sorrow conjures the wandering stars and makes them stand like wonder-wounded hearers? This is I, Hamlet the Dane. Laertes comes out of the grave. He leaps out. The devil take thy soul! Thou prayest not well, says Hamlet, and they grapple. I prithee, says Hamlet, take thy fingers from my throat. For though I am not splenitive and rash, yet I have in me something dangerous, which let thy wisdom fear. Hold off thy hand. The king, pluck them asunder. Queen, Hamlet, oh, gentlemen. Horatio intervenes. Good my lord, be quiet. Why, I will fight with him upon this theme until my eyelids will no longer wag. Oh, my son, what theme, demands the queen. I loved Ophelia. 40,000 brothers could not with all their quantity of love make up my sum. What wilt thou do for her? Oh, he is mad, Laertes, says the king. For love of God, says the queen, forbear him. Swoon, show me what thou do, says Hamlet. Would weep, would fight, would fast, would tear thyself, would drink up Isel, eat a crocodile. I'll do it. Dost thou come here to whine, to outface me with leaping in her grave? Be buried quick with her, and so will I. And if thou prate of mountains, let them throw millions of acres on us, till our ground, singeing its pate against the burning zone, make Asa like a wart. Nay, thou'lt mouth, I'll rat as well as thou. Ah, says the queen, this is mere madness, and thus a while the fit will work on him. Anon, as patient as the female dove, when that her golden couplets are disclosed, his silence will sit drooping. Hear you, sir, says Hamlet. What is the reason that you use me thus? I loved you ever, but it is no matter. Let Hercules himself do what he may. The cat will meow, and the dog will have his day. Hamlet departs. The king, I pray thee, good Horatio, wait upon him. Horatio exits. To Laertes, says the king, strengthen your patience in our last night's speech. We'll put the matter to the present push. Good Gertrude, set some watch over your son. This grave shall have a living monument. An hour of quiet thereby shall we see. Till then in patience our proceeding be. Inside Elsinore, in a stone lobby, Hamlet and Horatio. Hamlet, so much for this, sir. Now shall you see the other. You do remember all the circumstance. Oh, remember it, my lord, says Horatio. Sir, in my heart there was a kind of fighting that would not let me sleep. Methought I lay worse than the mutines in the bilboes, rashly, and praise be rashness for it. Let us know our indiscretion sometimes serves us well when our deep plots do pall, and that should learn us. There's a divinity that shapes our ends, rough hew them how thee will. That is most certain, says Horatio. Up from my cabin, my sea gown scarfed about me, in the dark groped I to find out them, had my desire, fingered their packet, in fine, withdrew to mine own room again, making so bold, my fears forgetting manners, to unfold their grand commission, where I found, Horatio, a royal knavery, an exact command, larded with many several sorts of reasons importing Denmark's health and England's too, with such bugs and goblins in my life, that on the supervised no leisure bated, no, not to say the grinding of the axe, my head should be struck off. Is it possible? Here's the commission. Read it at more leisure. But wilt thou hear how I did proceed? I beseech you, says Horatio. Being thus benetted around with villainies, or I could make a prologue to my brains, they had begun the play. I sat me down, devised a new commission, wrote it fair. I once did hold it as our statists do, a baseness to write fair, and labored much how to forget that learning. But, sir, now, it did me yeoman service. Wilt thou know the effect of what I wrote? I, my good lord, an earnest conjuration from the king. As England was his faithful tributary, as love between them like the palm might flourish, as peace should still her wheaten garland wear, and stand a calm between their amities, and many such like asses of great charge, that on the view and knowing of these contents, without debatement further, more or less, he should those bearers put to sudden death, not shriving time allowed. How was this sealed? Asked Horatio. Why, even in that was heaven ordinant. I had my father's signet in my purse, which was the model of that Danish seal, folded the writ up in the form of the other, subscribed it, gave it the impression, placed it safely, the changeling never known. Now the next day was our sea fight, and what to this was sequent thou knowest already. So Guildenstern and Rosencrantz go to it. Ha, says Hamlet. Why, man, they did make love to this employment. They are not near my conscience. Their defeat does by their own insinuation grow. 'Tis dangerous when the baser natures comes between the pass and fell, insensate points of mighty opposites. Why, what a king is this? Does it not, think thee, stand me now upon, says Hamlet, that he that hath killed my king and whored my mother, popped in between the election and my hopes, thrown out his angle for my proper life, and with such cozenage, is it not perfect conscience to quit him with this arm? And is it not to be damned to let this canker of our nature come in further evil? It must be shortly known to him from England what is the issue of the business there. It will be short, the interim's mine, and a man's life no more than to say one. But I am very sorry, good Horatio, that to Laertes I forgot myself, for by the image of my cause I see the portraiture of his. I'll court his favours. But sure the bravery of his grief did put me into a towering passion. Peace! Who comes here? Enters a courtier, one Osric, with a very delicate and feathered hat. Osric, your lordship is right welcome back to Denmark. I humbly thank you, sir. Dost thou know this waterfly? asked Hamlet to Horatio. Horatio, no, my good lord. Thy state is the more gracious, for 'tis a vice to know him. He hath much land and fertile. Let a beast be lord of beasts, and his crib shall stand at the king's mess. 'Tis a chaff, but as I say, spacious in the possession of dirt. Osric, sweet lord, if your lordship were at leisure, I should impart a thing to you from his majesty. I will perceive it, sir, with all diligence of spirit. Put your bonnet to its right use. 'Tis for the head. Osric puts his hat back on his head. I thank your lordship. It is very hot. No, believe me, 'tis very cold. The wind is northerly. It is indifferent cold, says Osric, my lord, indeed. But yet methinks it is very sultry and hot for my complexion. Exceedingly, my lord, it is very sultry, as 'twere, I cannot tell how. My lord, his majesty bade me signify to you that he has laid a great wager on your head. Sir, this is the matter. I beseech you, remember. Hat on head. Nay, good my lord, for my ease in good faith. 'Tis here is newly come to court Laertes. Believe me, an absolute gentleman, full of most excellent differences, a very soft society, and great showing. Indeed, to speak feelingly of him, he is the card or calendar of gentry, for you shall find in him the continent of what part a gentleman would see. Says Hamlet, sir, his definement suffers no perdition in you, though I know to divide him inventorially with dozy the arithmetic of memory, and yet but yaw neither in respect of his quick sale. But in the verity of extolment I take him to be a soul of great article, and his infusion of such dearth and rareness as to make true diction of him. His semblable is his mirror, and who else would trace him his umbrage, nothing more. Your lordship speaks most infallibly of him, says Osric. The concernancy, sir, why do we wrap the gentleman in our more rare breath? Sir, asks Osric. Horatio, is it not possible to understand in another tongue? You will to it, sir, really. Hamlet, what imports the nomination of this gentleman? Of Laertes, asks Osric. Horatio, his purse is empty already, all's golden words are spent. Of him, sir. I know you are not ignorant. I would you did, sir. Yet in faith, if you did, it would not much approve me. Well, sir. Osric, you are not ignorant of what excellence Laertes is. I dare not confess that, answers Hamlet, lest I should compare with him in excellence. But to know a man well were to know himself. I mean, sir, says Osric, for his weapon. But in the imputation laid on him by them, in his meed he's unfellowed. What's his weapon, asks Hamlet? Rapier and dagger. That's two of his weapons, but well. The king, sir, hath wagered with him 6 Barbary horses, against the which he is impawned, as I take it, 6 French rapiers and poniards, with their assigns as girdle hangers, and so. 3 of the carriages, in faith, are very dear to fancy, very responsive to the hilts, most delicate carriages, and of very liberal conceit. What call you the carriages, asked Hamlet. I knew you must be edified by the margent ere you had done, says Horatio. The carriages, says Osric, are the hangers. That phrase would be more germane to the matter if we could carry a cannon by our sides. I would it might be hangers till then. But on. 6 Barbary horses against 6 French swords, their assigns, and 3 liberal conceited carriages. That's the French bet against the Danish. Why is this all in pond, as you call it? The king, sir, hath laid, sir, that in a dozen passes between yourself and him, he shall not exceed you 3 hits. He hath laid on 12 for 9, and it would come to immediate trial, if your lordship would vouchsafe the answer. How if I answer no, asked Hamlet. I mean, my lord, the opposition of your person in trial. Sir, I will walk here in the hall. If it please his majesty, it is the breathing time of day with me. Let the foils be brought, the gentleman willing, and the king hold his purpose. I will win for him, and I can. If not, I will gain nothing but my shame and the odd hits. Shall I deliver you even so? Asked Osric. To this effect, sir, after what flourish your nature will. I commend my duty to your lordship. Yours. Osric exits. He does well to commend it himself, says Hamlet. There are no tongues else for his turn. This lapwing runs away with the shell on his head, says Horatio. Enter a lord. My lord, his majesty commended him to you by young Osric, who brings back to him that you attend him in the hall. He sends to know if your pleasure hold to play with Laertes, or that you will take longer time. I am constant to my purposes. They follow the king's pleasure. If his fitness speaks, mine is ready now, or whensoever provided I be so able as now. Says the lord, the king and queen, and all are coming down in happy time. And the queen desires you to use some gentle entertainment to Laertes before you fall to play. She well instructs me. The lord exits. Horatio, you will lose, my lord. I do not think so. Since he went into France, I have been in continual practice. I shall win at the odds, but thou wouldst not think how ill all's here about my heart. But it is no matter. Nay, good my lord, it is but foolery. But it is such a kind of gain-giving as would perhaps trouble a woman. If your mind dislike anything, obey it. I will forestall their repair hither, and say you are not fit. Not a whit. We defy augury. There is a special providence in the fall of a sparrow. If it be now, 'tis not to come. If it be not to come, it will be now. If it be not now, yet it will come. The readiness is all. Since no man of aught he leaves knows, what is it to leave betimes? Let be. A flourish of trumpets and drums. Officer, a table is prepared. Cushions are brought, and enters the king, queen, Osric, and all the state sabers and foils on hangers as described, daggers, flagons of wine, and following all the other combatant in the match, Laertes. Says the king, come, Hamlet, come and take this hand from me. He takes Hamlet's hand, does the king, and places it in the palm of Laertes. Hamlet looks to Laertes. Give me your pardon, sir. I have done you wrong. But pardon it as you are a gentleman. This presence knows, and you must needs have heard how I am punished with a sore distraction. What I have done that might your nature, honor, and exception roughly awake, I here proclaim was madness. Was it Hamlet wrong, Laertes? Never Hamlet. If Hamlet from himself be taken away, and when he's not himself does wrong, Laertes, then Hamlet does it not. Hamlet denies it. Who does it then? His madness. If it be so, Hamlet is of the faction that is wronged. His madness is poor Hamlet's enemy. Sir, in this audience, let my disclaiming from a proposed evil free me so far in your most generous thoughts, that I have shot my heir o'er the house and hurt my brother. I am satisfied in nature, says Laertes, whose motive in this case should stir me most to my revenge. But in my terms of honor I stand aloof and will no reconcilement till by some elder masters of known honor I have a voice and precedent of peace to keep my name ungored. But till that time I do receive your offered love like love, and will not wrong it. I embrace it freely, says Hamlet, and will this brother's wager frankly play. Give us the foils. Come on. Come, one for me, demands Laertes. Ha, says Hamlet, I'll be your foil. Laertes, in mine ignorance, your skill shall like a star of the darkest night stick fiery off indeed. You mock me, sir. No, by this hand, says Hamlet. The king, give them the foils. Young Osric, cousin Hamlet, you know the wager. Very well, my lord. Your grace has laid the odds of the weaker side. The king, I do not fear it. I have seen you both. But since he is better, we have therefore odds. Testing the sword. This is too heavy, says Laertes. Let me see another. Hamlet, testing his sword. This likes me well. These foils have all a length. Aye, my good lord, answers Osric. The two men, Hamlet, Laertes, pair off, stand in their postures for combat, ready. The king, set me the stoops of wine upon that table. If Hamlet give the first a second hit, or quit an answer of the third exchange, let all the battlements their ordnance fire. The king shall drink to Hamlet's better breath, and in the cup an onion shall he throw, richer than that which 4 successive kings in Denmark's crown have worn. Give me the cups, and let the kettle to the trumpet speak, the trumpet to the cannoneer without, the cannons to the heavens, the earth to heaven, heaven to earth, and now the king drinks to Hamlet. Come, begin, and you the judges bear a wary eye. Trumpets blare, and Hamlet stares off into Laertes' cold, killing eyes. Come on, sir. Come, my lord. And thus the swordplay begins. Its lunge, its parry, its thrust, its advance, its retreat. Hamlet, one! No, says Laertes. Judgment, says Hamlet. Osric intervenes. A hit, a very palpable hit. Well, again. Wait, stay, give me a drink. Hamlet, this pearl is thine, announces the king. Here's to thy health. The king raises his cup and then drops the pearl in the cup. Drums, trumpets, and shot reverberate across the stone walls. Give him the cup, says the king. I'll play the bout first. Set it by a while, says Hamlet. Come. And they square off again. Thrust, parry, the clash of saber and sword, steel. Hamlet advances, lunges, thrusts. Another hit, says Hamlet. What say you? A touch. I do confess it, says Laertes. The king, our son shall win. The queen, he's fat and scant of breath. Here, Hamlet, take my napkin, rub thy brows. The queen carouses to thy fortune. Hamlet, the queen lifts the cup. Good, madam, the king. Gertrude, do not drink. I will, my lord. I pray you, pardon me. And the queen takes a thick blast of the wine. From out of the cup she drinks. Oh, it is the poison cup, says the king. It is too late. I dare not drink yet, madam, by and by. Come, says the queen, let me wipe thy face. My lord, I'll hit him now, says Laertes to Claudius. I do not think it. And yet it almost against my conscience, says Laertes. Come, for the third, Laertes. You do but dally. I pray you, pass with your best violence. I am afeard you make a wanton of me. Say you so? Come on. And so the swordplay begins again. They lunge, they parry, they clash, they engage, they separate. Lunge, parry, advance, retreat. Osric enters. Nothing, neither way. Hamlet turns his back and smiles at the queen. Laertes, seeing his moment, have at you now! Laertes wounds Hamlet, and then he turns, and in a scuffling, Laertes drops his saber, and Hamlet his. Hamlet lifts up the saber, taken by Laertes, and wounds Laertes. Part them, says the king, they are incensed. Nay, come again, says Hamlet. And then in the back, the queen falls. Look to the queen there. Ho! Horatio, they bleed on both sides. How is it, my lord? How is it, Laertes? Laertes falls to the floor. Why, it's a woodcock to mine own spring, Osric. He falls and collapses. I am justly killed with mine own treachery. How does the queen? The king, she swoons to see them bleed. No, the drink, says the queen. Oh, my dear Hamlet, the drink, I am poisoned. The queen collapses and dies. Oh, villainy, says Hamlet. Oh, let the door be locked. Osric exits. Treachery, seek it out. Laertes, it is here, Hamlet. Hamlet, thou art slain. No medicine in the world can do thee good. In thee there is not half an hour's life. The treacherous instrument is in thy hand, unbaited and envenomed. The foul practice hath turned itself on me. Lo, here I lie, never to rise again. Thy mother's poisoned. I can no more. The king's to blame. Hamlet, the point in venom too, then venom to thy work. Hamlet leaps across the floor, plunges his rapier into the chest of the king. Treason, treason, shouts the court. Oh, yet defend me, screams the king. Friends, I am but hurt. Here, thou incestuous murderess, damn the Dane, drink off this potion. Is thy onion here? Hamlet reaches out and opens the king's mouth, drains the poison down his throat. Follow my mother. The king expires in blood and death and dies. He is justly served, says Laertes. It is a poison tempered by himself. Exchange forgiveness with me, noble Hamlet. Mine and my father's death come not upon thee, nor thine on me. Laertes dies. Heaven make thee free of it, says Hamlet. I follow thee. I am dead, Horatio. Wretched queen, adieu. You that look pale and tremble at this chance, that are but mutes or audience to this act, had I but time, as this fell sergeant Death is strict in his arrest, oh, I could tell you, but let it be. Horatio, I am dead. Thou livest. Report me and my cause aright to the unsatisfied. Never believe it, says Horatio. I am more an antique Roman than a Dane. Here's yet some liquor left. He picks up the cup. Hamlet grabs it. As thou art a man, give me the cup. Let go, by heaven, I'll have it. Oh God, Horatio, what a wounded name, thing standing thus unknown, shall I leave behind me? If thou didst ever hold me in thy heart, absent thee from felicity a while, and in this harsh world draw thy breath in pain to tell my story. The thunder of marching feet is heard afar, and a cannon shot echoes across Elsinore. Hamlet, what warlike noise is this? Enters Osric. Young Fortinbras, with conquest come from Poland, to the ambassador of England, gives this warlike volley. Oh, I die, Horatio. The potent poison quite o'ercrows my spirit. I cannot live to hear the news from England, but I do prophesy the election lights on Fortinbras. He has my dying voice. So tell him, with the occurrence more or less, which have solicited. The rest is silence. Oh, Hamlet dies. Horatio looks at the dead body. Now cracks a noble heart. Good night, sweet prince, and flight of angels sing thee to thy rest. The sound of marches grows louder. Horatio looks towards the noise. Why does the drum come hither? Enters Fortinbras with the English ambassadors, with drums, colours, and attendants, followed by soldiers. Where is this sight? Shouts Fortinbras. What is it you would see? If aught of woe or wonder, cease your search. This quarry cries on havoc, says Fortinbras. O proud death, what feast is toward in thine eternal cell, that thou so many princes at a shot so bloodily hast struck? The sight is dismal, says the English ambassador, and our affairs from England come too late. The ears are senseless that should give us hearing to tell him his commandment is fulfilled, that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Where should we have our thanks? Horatio steps forward, points to the king, not from his mouth addeth the ability of life to thank you. He never gave commandment for their death. But since so jump upon this bloody question, you from the Polack wars, and you from England are here arrived, give order that these bodies high on a stage be placed to the view, and let me speak to the yet unknowing world how these things came about. So shall you hear of carnal, bloody, and unnatural acts, of accidental judgment, casual slaughters, of deaths put on by cunning and forced cause, and in this upshot purposes mistook fallen on the inventors' heads. All this can I truly deliver. Let us haste to hear it, says Fortinbras, and call the noblest to the audience. For me, with sorrow, I embrace my fortune. I have some rights of memory in this kingdom, which now to claim my vantage doth invite me. Of that I shall have also cause to speak, says Horatio, and from his mouth whose voice will draw no more. But let this same be presently performed, even while men's minds are wild, lest more mischance on plots and errors happen. Let 4 captains, says Fortinbras, bear Hamlet like a soldier to the stage, for he was likely, had he been put on, to have proved most royal. And for his passage, the soldier's music and the right of war speak loudly for him. Take up the bodies. Such a sight as this becomes the field, but here shows much amiss. Go, bid the soldiers shoot. Fortinbras and the ambassadors and the surviving members of the court all exit, marching, after the which a peal of cannon echoes off the stone battlements of Elsinore, the sound of which travels across Denmark and the world. Curtain. The end. Fini. The play's the thing that caught my soul. I'm done. I did it. Hamlet. I hope you enjoyed. For me, it was an incredible journey as I find myself at this very moment transitioning from the imaginary universe of Shakespeare's Hamlet into the present moment, right back here, into the comfortable confines of my movie studio apartment. These narrow walls seem to encompass the whole world, and my imagination knew no boundaries. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this journey into Hamlet. All the characters, a one-man show. This journey into crime, corruption, and cover-up, and tragedy. Wow, there's so much to think about and to express here. But I'll leave that to subsequent podcasts, and you're invited to send me an email and tell me what you think. For me, it definitely rewarded me more than, in all likelihood, anybody's who heard me. So this little exercise in theatrical self-indulgence, exercising my inner ham to the extreme, was fun and interesting, and I hope you enjoyed. So until my next installment, I bid you adios, goodbye, and adieu.